Walther P99 slide, and we will show you how to install Meprolight P99 PPQ sights, which the part number for these are 18801. So coming on the gun itself are these plastic sights straight from Walther, and they also had a baggie of 3 extra sights in different sizes. And they are physically numbered 3, 4, 5, and 6. 4 words on there to begin with, and I assume that's straight from the factory, as this is essentially an unfired P99. But to get this out, you need the included little wrench here, and it's just held in by this little set screw, and you go at it from the bottom, right? And then once it's out, as it is now, you just pop that front side out, and that's it. For the rear sight, a little bit different. Pretty ingenious by Walther here. But all it is this little retaining pin, which has a little notch in it where this screw sits into, right? So to get this rear sight out, all you have to do is depress that retaining pin, or whatever you want to call it, and then slide this sight out. So that screw is essentially square. It's kind of odd, but each side of that square will sit right in this little notch right here in that retaining pin, right? So you take that all the way out, but that screw at the end of the day is just a Windage screw, and it plays off of where it sits right there. So you can turn it, and it's kind of interesting, not completely flat. It's almost like you use a coin there, and it's better than an actual screwdriver. But this is left-hand thread, so if you righty it, it will loosen up, right? Whereas if you go counterclockwise, it's going to go in. And you can see the instructions here from the P99 manual itself. You can pause the video here to get a better idea of how Walther wants you to change the windage along with elevation, right? Put that away. And then here, I measured the plastic front sights OEM that come with the in the case itself, right? So those are all the different measurements. And in the manual, it shows you, if you want to change the point of impact up or down, how you would want to change those sights. And obviously we don't need the set screw anymore, so we'll push that to the side. And here is the manual from Meprolight. So it says P99 PPQ 9mm and 40, along with Smith & Wesson 99, but I think it got cut off there at the end, right? And then this is Walther's little hex driver that was included as well in that bag. We don't need that. You still need this rear sight right here, which we can take the Windage screw off of, which we need, and it matches the threading of the Meprolight rear sight, right? So to get this out, we need to go clockwise, which is counterintuitive to most threads you're used to. But it's pretty finely threaded, so it takes a while to get out. And there it is. Once again, it's just plastic white dots, nothing special. And generally these, and I measured this too, the heights of the Meprolights are a little bit higher, and I'll put those measurements in the description to give you a better idea of what you'd be working with there. So it's higher both in the rear sight and the front sight compared to here, right? So that's just the design decision by Meprolight. So to get this started, to install, all we need to do is, now we have our Windage screw here. You can see how it is squared there, which is what I was talking about earlier, how it interacts with this little retaining pin. So you just insert that screw, and now you want to go counterclockwise. You want to make sure you don't cross thread this, which I'm in now. Thread, thread, thread. And while I'm doing this, here's our front sight, same attachment point. It's kind of got like a little oval look to it, like a Glock, but it's not a Glock. It's proprietary to Walther, and only Walther as far as I know. P99s, PPQs, even the PPSs and PPX and all that kind of have the same exact insert, the dimensional insert right there. It's just a matter of how this sight is designed and the heights for all the Walthers out there. So we're almost in here, and what I would say to get this set up to begin with is you want to go slightly below the edge of this rear sight, right? Just kind of where it was set up to begin with when it was first installed there. And you also want to make sure that there's still enough room between this screw and this little cutout here for this retaining pin to set into and lock this rear sight in place once it's on there. So it's probably, let's say right there's good. So same deal. I would highly recommend going in from this side. If you go from the other side, you can get stuck and it's not great. But you just want to kind of ride these rails. Maybe you can see them. But there's like a lower section right here, then like a rail section right at the edges here. So you just want to get in there, find where it needs to slide into. And before we do that, you can see these little cutouts all the way through, right? That's where it's riding through on this slide, right on that edge of the cut. Right, same deal there. Kind of have like a little lip here, and it rides under that. So retaping this part of the video because I realized I didn't get the money shot of me fitting it into place, but all you have to do is ride those rails that we were talking about right in the dovetail cut. And then here's where it gets a little tricky, is this retaining pin has that little cutout, and that cutout needs to ride right on that windage screw. So fit it in. It's going to be tighter than the OEM sight for sure, but snug is not a bad thing. Then you just press down this retaining pin all the way and let that sight set into place, and you will hear a click just like that once it is in place. And that's all there is to it. Set in place, and call back to the manual. All you really have to do is turn this screw 90 degrees, right, to change the windage. You can go back in the video and check out the video to see how you need to turn that windage screw to adjust for your point of aim and point of impact. And that's all there is to it. You can see how these sights look. It's going to be white during the day. They got like these white vials, right? See if we can catch a good shot of it. White vials, white reflective material, right? And then the actual tritium itself is green. And green tritium is always going to be brighter than orange or yellow. Just a caveat on that. So there you go. And then next you'll see the install of the front sight. And with our front sight here, it's got the Glock style little insert. All right, let's just fit it in there. The screw provided with this front sight in the Meprolight packaging is the same screw that we use for Glock sights. Just be careful to not over torque these things and break off the threading inside the sight. Don't go too crazy here, right? I'm going to use some red Loctite. You guys can use what you want. Just be aware that with a red Loctite and more of the permanent types of Loctites, that at some point you're going to have to take these sights off, right? And the red Loctite is much harder to take off than, let's say, the non-permanents like the blue Loctites and the red Loctites, excuse me, like the green or the blue Loctites, which are non-permanent. Red is really defined as permanent, but I don't want this thing going anywhere. Totally up to you how you want to handle it. But all there is to it is just got to line up that hole on the bottom. You can see how it's a little recess for your tool. Just line it up. Get her tight. Make sure it is aligned up front. All right, still good up there. That's it. Make sure it is snugged in there. You can take a Q-tip to that and clean up the excess Loctite. That's all there is to it. You can see how it's nice and square and lined up, right? And there you go. Our night sights are installed. This front sight is 0.210 inches, right? The other night sight we make for Walther, same exact insert, the dimensional insert that goes into the slide itself, same exact thing, just different height, is the 18802, which is for the PPS and PPX. That one has a height of 0.161 inches. So it's quite ways off in terms of height from this sight, but if you're having, you know, serious point of aim, point of impact issues, that is a possibility of being able to swap out the front sight for another night sight that is available to you. But just to give you some background on this. All right, there it is. Got our 18801 sights for the Walther P99 and the PPQ, as well as your Smith & Wesson 99s out there. All right, let me know if you have any questions in the comments.